him real quick,
All right,
like
so I'm
30 seconds.
gonna go ahead and start. You can come in after. All right. So, a little bit of a late start. Welcome to the Humane Mind, episode. What is this? 84. Memorial Day weekend. Uh, Not really that much to talk about in the news today. So basically, I'm going to be covering a couple of just silly stuff that happened this week. Ooh, yeah, sorry about that. That moved my head slightly, and that light is kind of blinding. All right, so hopefully, actually, looks like one person is watching this, but that might just be me doing the preview of the stream. But anyway, so my Sinister was here. He just had to use the bathroom real fast. We were having technical difficulties, delayed by 15 minutes or whatever. Um, but yeah, so sorry about that. But we will get this thing going. So first thing I want to cover is this is something I saw via Twitter and I thought was really awesome, and I was hoping that they did the entire thing like this, but apparently it's only these three. But I'm gonna go ahead and show these clips. So, oh, that shows the entire thing. Let me move that there. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you can see this. I'm posted this meme, or displaying this meme over the screen. Couldn't find a way to get it to be a full screen thing. I could reshape this to fit, but then that's going to change up how the other videos play, because they're all in the same window. So can you see that? Or maybe I should link it in the chat.
I don't know
I
if
can
you
see it in the stream.
post it.
So, like I said, there's only three of these. So, so I saw this was on a Twitter stream, and there's people started posting these, and these are amazing. I wish they did the entire song like that. From what I can tell, it's only those three. They didn't do the entire song. I was like, oh, that needs to be a thing. we need to have an ongoing meme thing where there's just song lyrics where it's stupid stuff like that through the whole thing. Yeah, those are pretty good. Here's okay. I've been talking about this almost every stream of Babylon Beat. Man, this thing, whoever's writing for these guys, they are like the Brian Regan of parody, in that they're clean, nothing terribly offensive and all that sort of stuff, and they're just outright funny. Um,
Well, I
so
mean, it would almost seem like a Weird Al parody, except for
yeah,
instead of a video, it's just memes.
yeah, no, these guys. Yeah, I mean, it's some of the stuff is kind of wah wah, but when they are on, it is awesome. This is this is a great one. Groot in hot water after recent I am Groot comment. Oh man, that is. Okay, so that was one of the ones they came out with this week. This is a pretty good one too. Cortez disappointed to learn the free market isn't a grocery store where you don't have to pay for anything. And then we've got this notorious Nazi leader Ben Shapiro outed as Jew. Man, that's yeah. Their stuff that they've been playing this week, better than the Onion has been in years, and they've been doing this stuff. I mean, almost every week there's something new like that is amazing. So I highly recommend Babylon Bee. Go check them out. They are great at developing memes and just lambasting. So they even though it's a Christian parody site, they also poke fun at Christians and stuff like that. So pretty good place. Those were just the three that popped out to me this week. I'm like, oh, dude, that Groot one had me. All right, so
Ooh, shouldn't have said that.
all right, let me. Hopefully, this one will be a little bit better. When I, so yeah. So even though I am gonna be not cussing on this, these guys, I don't know if you saw the name of the video here, but this is also a video that's been circulating this week. So
2 minutes, 14 seconds. A new personal best. Nice job, Alyssa. My name is Mike Franklin, and I'm the founder of Scared Shitless Fitness, the world-renowned fitness regime that's fueled by fear. While other gyms focus on hard work and dedication to see results, our fear-based model guarantees that even the laziest sack of shit will get a full cardio workout before sunrise. To sign up, just tell us who you fear, and we'll handle the rest. Scared Shitless exploits your fight-or-flight mechanism, forcing fear-induced shit out of your system, shedding unneeded weight while allowing for a faster getaway.
all right, yeah, there's more to the clip. I was actually surprised that this was produced by Comedy Central. That it's one of those things. Is like Comedy Central has been on a decline for a couple of years, and then just every once in a while they'll have, like, they had that Jussie Smollett clip from that was actually the guys behind the Daily Show, and you're just like, wait, the Daily Show still does comedy? And then they come out with this one, and that one's been circulating. I'm like, man, that is great stuff. And I was like, man, that's what they need to get back to more of. But a lot of their stuff is just whatever. What was that?
Or Mormons throwing Bibles at the back of that guy's head.
Yeah. That was a pretty good one.
I think it's because most of the comedy outlets, like the mainstream ones, have gone too PC, and they just don't realize that's not comedy anymore.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is most of the shows. So I mean, they had Key and Peele was like the last good comedy show that they had, and when that went off the air, what did they replace it with? A bunch of I mean, the shows that they tried to come up with were just, I mean, it was basically just leftist patting people on the back, and it was like comedy you snap to.
I think the only thing people watch anymore is South Park and their daily or nightly shows.
Yeah, well, even South Park has kind of disappeared. They haven't had anything that's been kind of like, oh man, I don't know if they've just gotten bored with the show, or maybe just things have become their real life has become too much like a clown world. There's nothing left to parody, because you're like, now they're just telling the future.
I think that's what's going on, is they keep trying to do parody, and then it actually happens in real life, and no one's shocked.
Yeah. So it's kind of like they're just describing what's gonna happen in a couple of weeks. Yeah, South Park. I haven't seen anything like South Park. I was like, oh, that was an awesome episode. I haven't seen anything from them in years that had that same effect. Like the Sword of Truth episode, amazing. Even some of the newer ones, like the Member Berries, were pretty good.
Here and there, the Whole Foods moving in was actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Where everyone's like donating $1, and they feel like they're saving the world, and so they get a T-shirt and they're bragging about how awesome they're doing because they donated $1 to Whole Foods.
I also like the Smug episode where people were literally sniffing their own farts.
Oh, wait, was that San Francisco when they?
Yeah.
San Francisco. Yeah. A lot of Prius. I mean, they still have some pretty good stuff. I think it's just things have actually gotten so retarded in real life that it's more show mirroring what's happening in real life now, instead of being so far out there that it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's hard to be absurd.
Realistic.
Yeah, which is, that was another thing. Babylon beat it. I don't know if that was this week or the week before, but they were talking about AOC being mistaken for her own satire account. It's like, yeah, that's.
What did actually happen?
No, yeah, well, the satire account was taken down because it was supposedly too close to the real thing or something like that, and people were mistaking it for her. I'm like, well, that's because she's a moron. Yeah, but, the Babylon Bee spun it and was like, oh, yeah, she lost her Twitter account because people thought she was a parody. Okay.
So related to that, and I don't know, I haven't actually seen any memes on it, but it does seem to be a meme in itself, where she was talking about the world will end in 12 years, and
Yeah.
she said that on multiple occasions, and then she rolled it all back and said, well, that was obviously just hyperbole. I was telling a joke.
Yeah, she said it was dry humor and sarcasm.
Yeah,
What?
well, she said you have to have the intelligence of a sea sponge if you believed her on that. But all of the major Democrat representatives or presidential elects were all touting the same thing.
Yeah,
They were following right line, and she just dissed them all and didn't even realize it.
And more recently, this is something that happened. It was either this week or maybe last week. She doubled down on the 12-year thing. She said it again, and you're like, wait, what happened to dry humor and sarcasm? Why are you now touting it again? Is every time you mention this dry humor and sarcasm, or is it just the last time?
Because got a slap on the wrist and said, hey, you just dissed the entire Democratic Party, including people behind you, saying they had zero intelligence.
Yeah. It's bizarre. Oh, so in kind of going back to Twitter bans, this is another thing that happened this week, and this is, I don't have a screenshot for this or anything like that, but Nick Monroe, who is he's kind of like Tim Pool, although he doesn't go out and do interviews and journalism, things like that. Instead, he's more of like an aggregator of news, so kind of like the Drudge Report sort of thing. Is basically a story will break, and he will go through and collect all the information for it, and then basically do these long Twitter threads where he's explaining, okay, exactly what's going on, this happened, and it's the chain of events, or it's all the information about a specific thing. Twitter banned him today, and the reason they cited for banning him is because he was trying to prevent himself from being permanently banned. What? That's the official reason they have, and Brittany Pettibone posted this. She had with a screenshot of the email from Twitter saying that he violated the rules in trying to circumvent a permanent ban, which is why he's permanently banned.
But by circumventing, meaning he actually didn't break any rules.
No, it's like they're saying, well, he's not permanently banned right now, so that's the excuse as to why he should be permanently banned. Doesn't make any sense. He didn't. The rule that he broke was not being permanently banned. So I don't understand, because to the best of my knowledge, he does not have any alternative accounts on Twitter. He just had the one. It's always been the same. Nick Monroe, I think it's 112 or something like that. And that's it. That's been his account for forever. That's where he posted all the stuff. That's where I was following him. That's the account that had the however many thousand followers. Banned. And the reason they cited is, he was attempting to circumvent our banning rules that would... I'm like...
That's what everybody does who is not banned. They just don't break the rules that would get them banned. Are they now calling that a circumvention?
I don't know. It sounds like they're saying he was creating multiple accounts, and when one would get banned, he'd go to the other account. But that's not what he did. Because his main account wasn't banned until it was permanently banned. I don't know if he's got any alternative accounts, I just know of the one. So, it's possible that he had multiple accounts. But, yeah, I guess there's no information. Maybe he was posting on multiple accounts, and when they banned one, he would go to his alternate. Thing is nobody knows. Everybody in the know who knows him or hangs out with him, or that that's talking about this issue. None of them are like, oh, this was his alternate account. None of them are saying that. They're like, yeah, this is the only one. So, what alts? How is he circumventing the rules?
Well, the
This
only
doesn't
other
make
way
any
I could
sense.
decipher that or try and interpret that is that he has come close to what they would consider a bannable statement or offense, but hasn't quite met that. And so he has purposely come up to the edge and not actually broken rules. And they're like, well, there's too many times that that's close enough. We're just going to ban him. But that defeats the whole point of even having rules.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense. So legitimately the purpose for that rule is, oh, you got banned for a week on your main account, and so you go and you create a duplicate so that way you can reach people when you're banned on your other account. That's the purpose of that rule, but to the best of my knowledge and the best of everybody else's knowledge, they're like, he doesn't have an alternate account. He doesn't have a backup. This is it.
Maybe it was just
That's
people retweeting his statements and they're like, well, that must be him.
yeah, that's also another possibility of what Twitter thought was, oh, he's using bot accounts, or he's using, because people would post screenshots of the stuff that he had on his account. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know who that is. I haven't followed him.
Oh.
From what you're stating, it sounds like he tried to just simply be objective and point out
Yeah.
the information.
I put him in the same boat as being as center line as possible, like Tim Pool. I haven't seen him coming out too far on one side or the other. It's always been
That's a violation of anything. If you provide information that is public information that he gathered and just wants to spread it,
yeah.
how is it a violation of anything? Since when did telling events as they happen to become a stigmatized?
Well, I'm thinking it has something to do with people like, because he is friends with people like Brittany Pettibone and Lauren Southern and what's the dude's name? Pettibone's fiance. Did they get married? I don't remember. I don't know if they've got married yet. I know Michael Selzner, is that his last name? I'm not sure. So when they were in hot water in the media and all that sort of thing, he was just reporting, hey, this is exactly what happened. There's nothing. She did not fire a flare at a boat. She did not try to kill migrants. He was just saying, hey, this is the actual facts of the case. And he's also on Count Dankula. He was there saying, hey, this is what happened, and this is why it's absurd. I'm like, apparently doing something like that, because Tim Pool has come out and said, when the story doesn't match what they're trying to paint it as, he's like, yeah, the actual facts have to be this. Those guys weren't white supremacists. Stop trying to label them white supremacists. That's similar to what Nick Monroe has done for for what I can tell.
I think, unfortunately, for Tim Pool and anybody else like him, he's trying to be as centrist as possible.
Yeah.
It doesn't work anymore.
Nope.
Just simply telling facts as facts is now considered biased and harmful and hateful.
Oh, okay. That kind of next little thing. I don't know. Have you seen the fash tag? Or have you heard? So so this is another thing started by Poll. They started a campaign to make hashtags related to white supremacists and the Nazis and all that sort of thing. So one of the things they're saying about hashtags is it's basically two H's stacked on top of each other. And yeah, it is. It's an H going up and down, an H going left and right, an H. And then there's also, let's see, something about 8 and 8. I forget what they're saying about 8 and 8, because it's not 8 and 8. Okay. If you cut it in half, it makes an 8 and an 8. Yeah. And they're saying that's also a symbol for the eighth letter of the alphabet is H, so that's another tie back to he who must not be named on YouTube, apparently. Oh, sorry, I skipped to the next one. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I thought I had muted that for a second. Yeah, so anyway, so now news media is reporting on hashtags being related to Nazis. And they're reporting it in a way where they're like, yeah, we know that this isn't true, but people are talking about it as if it is true. And you're like, but I mean, the whole reason polls started, or Sony brought this up on poll, is because hashtags are used in a lot of these social media systems. Like, hashtag is one of the main ways of trending on Twitter, and hashtags is how you label your videos in YouTube. That's basically all of those things that are marked as tags are actually in the code as hashtags. So when you're doing a search for a hashtag, if you find it easier for Twitter searches and YouTube searches, because you can find things like, oh, all of these things have a common tag, and you're like, well, they use hashtags to do that. And so poll is trying to make it kind of like turn the hashtag into the new OK symbol.
So pretty much anything with a hashtag could be linked to white supremacists or something.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do. So the news media right now is kind of biting, but because they're talking about it and they're associating it with Nazis, except for some, and you're
they would be so stupid to bite at that. That sounds like an extremely stupid 4chan troll. Just
that's what it is. It's a troll, and so Tim Pool had a video talking about it, and this has been circulating a couple of days. I'm like, oh, yeah. And I started looking at it. I'm like, what? They're literally talking about it, and they start off by saying, no, this is just a troll thing, and it's not really associated with Nazis, but Nazis are using it, and you're like,
so would that make stuff like #MeToo a white supremacist movement?
Apparently,
because Lana's white.
Yeah,
it's kind of spearhead.
It is. They are falling into the victims of, well, if Nazis ever touch something, we can't use it anymore. You're like, man, that's giving way too much power to Nazis.
Nazis have eaten donuts. They like steak. They may have a salad every once in a while. They drive cars. What?
And I've said something similar to this, is like, man, that's given a lot of powers to these neo-Nazis and these Klansmen and all that sort of thing. And if I was one of them, I'd be like, oh, so if I want something all to myself, all I have to do is start using it and associate it with white nationalism, and now, hey, it's ours forever now. You can't use it anymore.
I mean, Hitler had facial hair. Does that mean every guy on the planet needs to now shave so they're not associated with Nazis?
Apparently the way the media is portraying all this sort of thing is like, well, we know that this is a harmless, innocent thing, but they're using it, so we need to stop.
Why report on it? And who is they? They don't even know if white nationalists or Nazis are actually using it, or if it's a troll just saying, hey, look, they could be using it. How stupid.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
They drive a Ford. So what? Until they actually come out and start assaulting people and having protests and rallies, saying down with whatever race, then, that's something to pay attention to.
Yeah, so that was something that Tim Pool brought up in the video, and it's something that I don't think I've covered on this. So they had a white nationalist rally or something recently, like a couple of weeks ago, and 6 people showed up. And then more than 600 people showed up to counter-protest them.
Those were survivors of Charlottesville. The rest of the guys left over, right?
It was. It might not have been 600, but it was like a couple of hundred showed up to counter protest, like a dozen dudes, and you're like, what's? And they spent like
tiny. Nobody cares.
And they spent a couple of $100,000 on security for the event, and it was like, it's less than 10 guys who showed up to this thing, and there's. The number of counter protesters is like, it was more than 10 times the amount of people who showed up, and you're like, you realize these guys are nothing. They're inconsequential.
Hang out at a bar after work and talk about whatever they don't like about other races, and they decided, hey, let's have a rally. That's the way it has been, and that's why I don't like the Charlottesville incident, because most of those people were not white nationalists. They weren't protesting any other race. They were protesting desecration of their national monuments.
Yeah.
Of historical, figures and statues being torn down just for the hell of it.
Yep. And
Nobody
then Trump made a
fewer.
comment to that same extent, and then they keep turning it around, and Joe Biden has said, "Oh, he called Nazis good people," and Warren Buffett repeats that, or not Warren Buffett,
But he
Elizabeth
said
Warren.
there are people on both sides.
Yeah,
So if they're going to demonize one side, then they're going to have to demonize the other, which means the people fighting against the ones that they assume are
yeah,
white nationalists are
but
also good
but
people, which they're
yeah,
not. The ones that started the whole fight were actually Antifa. But no, the majority of that had nothing to do with
yeah,
nationalism or being white. It was just, hey, this is history. Stop tearing it down. What? That's
yeah.
ignorant.
Yeah, and so that's why Trump made a statement, and then they've been trying to turn it as if he was defending Nazis, and he's like, no, he in the same speech he condemned that. He's like, yeah, I condemn the violent people and I condemn the Nazis.
But so they have an actual white nationalist rally, and a dozen people show up, and that's it.
Yeah, that's how it's always been.
That's about what everybody's expected because I've never even met one. They're not in the news, they're not out and about. It's just like small pockets here and there. One guy had a bad experience and shares it with his buddies, and they're
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, I agree with you. Let's hate on other races."
and a
It's just a bunch
lot
of
of the leadership or the main figures in that movement, they all when they got older, like, oh yeah, that was dumb, and they left. Like
they're not
so,
even active.
yeah,
They're
like all of their major people were like, "Oh yeah, I used to be one of those in the back in the day. It was dumb. I got over it."
when's the last time there's actually been a lynching or a cross burning? That would have been all over the news. One person's yard with a cross burning in the front would have been all over the national news
Yeah.
anytime within the last 5 years.
Well,
It doesn't happen.
and the lynching
Nope.
thing. That's why Kamala Harris passed the lynching bill because there were so many lynchings going. Wait, no, there was none, and so they had to fake one with Smollett.
Yeah, there was zero. And the only one that ever happened in the last decade is just because he made it up.
Yeah.
And there was no white guys involved in that entire scenario, period. Oh, I don't know if the guy who sold them the rope at the shop, maybe he was white. I don't remember.
Maybe. All right. Yeah. Oh,
Ugh.
so that's another. So those court documents were originally they were made private, and so you couldn't. Yeah, they were sealed. But the judge reopened those up, so they are now available to the public as of I think today. And so now people are going through them, and they're going to find more than just dirt on Smollett. Yeah. I am thinking this goes further. I'm thinking he was a hired stooge, and he's just really, really bad. Yeah, I'm thinking they're gonna find ties because they're looking into the corruption because of what's her name, Fox.
Yeah. Last name Fox. I don't remember the first name.
Yeah, I can't remember the first name. Who decided to drop the charges or not?
Yeah, they
not,
$10,000 in bail. So we're gonna drop everything. Yeah, no harm, no foul. Even though
so
half the country just got hated on for no reason.
yeah. So there's looking into corruption there and looking into corruption the whole time. So yeah, I think with the
that was days after the trial.
Yep.
Where they have text messages from who was it? Obama's aide or Michelle's aide contacting Fox and saying, "Hey, is there any way we can kind of just sweep this under the rug?" I mean, basically, it's kind of paraphrasing, but those text messages were revealed back in March, early March.
Yeah. So now the official documents are going to be made public, and people are going to find out. And I think it's going to start another investigation into other people besides Smollett and the two Nigerian guys.
Yeah, that's going to put an investigation into Fox and the assistant that contacted her. That I don't remember that lady's name, the Asian-looking lady.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
And then that could tie back to Obama because that's where she said she got the information or the reason to act on the situation at all.
And it may end up coming back on Harris as well. So this was up a little earlier because I forgot to hide my screen.
I don't know. She's just too stupid and trying to latch on to anything that she can. I don't know. So far, I haven't seen anything of her direct involvement, but I think she's just grasping at straws and, hey, this fits what I need, so I'm just going to hop right on it. I think she's just an ignorant person.
Yeah. So I don't know if you're looking at the stream, but this is all of the Democratic candidates that are currently running, and this is a legitimate picture. There's no extra, nobody's hidden in here. These are all people who are legitimately running. And I counted them earlier, and I'm like, okay, Sanders, Harris, Warren, Booker, Beto, that's Gabbard. I don't know. Swalwell, Biden. Oh man, I want to. Man, butt gig is.
I think it's Buttigieg.
It's Buttigieg, yeah. So Buttigieg, Crowder keeps making me say butt gig, and I'm like, no, that's not his name. Buttigieg, some random Yang, random. I only 21. I could only name 10. Who are the rest of these people?
Well, the two ladies after Potato Head, I recognize their faces. I just can't remember their names.
And that's more than I'm like, man. I thought this was a fake picture because I'm looking at them like, no, you got to have extra people in here that aren't.
No, and the one after Potato she's from Hawaii.
Yeah, that's Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know. So out of all of these that are running, like, if I was going to vote and I was going to vote Democrat, she would have my vote.
9, 10, 11. I recognize 12 of them.
Yeah. So Andrew Yang, I think, is actually intelligent, but he's just wrong on a lot of things. I think his
policy is not correct at all.
I think if he actually implemented his policies, he would see. Yeah, they are going to go the same way that any socialist policy goes. It's just, yeah. And then Buttigieg, he's the only thing he's got for him is I'm gay, and oh, have I told you that I'm gay yet? Oh, by the way, I'm gay. And like that's nothing. That's all he keeps talking about.
Yeah, boosted his platform in the late '90s, like decades ago. Yeah, nobody cares.
Yeah, so out of all of these, Yang and Gabbard are the only ones who are actually like, oh, reasonable. The rest of these are idiots. Idiots with crazy... And okay, so and I should say, Biden is also somewhat reasonable in his policies and, you know, what his views on things, but he's starting to go kind of he's kind of changing his...
He is an old school Democrat where they actually somewhat made sense.
Yeah.
But anytime he opens his mouth to display those ideals, he gets trampled on by the rest of the Democratic Party. And so the only way he can stay afloat within the party is he has to kind of do a 180 on most of what he said through the 90s, through the early 2000s, and they are eating him alive. It's they don't tolerate standard old school Democrat Party.
Yeah. And so if you look at what Tulsi Gabbard stands, like she's anti-war and she's so for the most part she's kind of like as close as you can get to a centrist as I've seen on either party.
I agree. So, I mean, I don't agree with most of her policy, but she makes sense with a lot of things she is saying. You can see her point of view, but I think the reason she won't get trampled on is because she's considered a minority woman from Hawaii.
Yeah.
If she was a dude, a white dude, she would have been out of picture before she even got started.
Yeah.
The only two.
Because her views are a little too reasonable, and if they'd run with somebody like her, they would have a chance of winning, but they won't. They're gonna run with probably Beto or.
No, I don't think Beto. I would think a Warren or Harris.
Oh.
I think Beto.
I think it actually might end up being Harris.
Beto, because he kind of went on The View, and I don't know if it was another magazine or another show, but he started apologizing for his privilege and all of this other. That made him an actual beta.
Yeah.
And so now everyone's like, well, screw that guy. We thought he
Well,
was cool.
okay.
He's
Well,
just
so
a
that
white
was
man
the
apologizing for his privilege. We're done with him. He shot
okay.
himself in the foot with that.
Well,
I
Swalwell
don't
has never
think
had any traction, and he was recently doing the same thing. All
yeah.
right, give me a second here to queue up this video here, and this is so cringy. I had a different video pulled up, but apparently that website just likes to keep crashing. So
why should another white guy be president?
Well, a white guy who doesn't see other identities or understand other experiences should not be president. I do. And, you know, where there would be gaps in my knowledge or my experience, I will pass the mic to people, you know, who do have that experience. I've also pledged that I would ask a woman to serve as vice president.
yeah, so it cuts out a little bit there on the audio, but yeah, as vice president. Oh man, it's so pandering and just idiotic. You're like, wait, so I'm white and I know I'm white, but I'm not like the other white guys. Oh, it just no. What he should have said is just like, wait, so why does it matter if they're white? How many presidents have had brown hair? How many presidents have had brown eyes? How many presidents have had, how many presidents have been disabled? And it, yeah, it's like those sorts of things don't matter. What matters in a presidency is what they accomplish while they are a president, what their policies are. Uh-oh. I just lost audio from you again. Give me a second.
I'm sorry. Yep, that was my fault. I thought I clicked.
Okay.
My bad.
I was like, I was having audio issues earlier. I was like, oh no.
When is this a relevant question? Why should another white guy be president? That's about as racist as it gets.
Yep. Racist and sexist. It's like,
why are those? That is, I don't care if he's white, black, brown, yellow, or transparent. If he's got good policies and supports the United States and is a legal citizen, then they can run for president. And I'll vote on who has the best policy. I don't care what they look like. I mean, we've had a president in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Nobody cared about the wheelchair. They all cared about the policy. Do I get to keep my money I earn? What's the economy doing? What's the state of the country? That's what people care about, not the whatever kind of haircut they got or color of their skin or whether they're a man or a woman. At some point, we might get a woman president. Nobody cares. If she can fit the bill, you know, she fits that position, she can follow through on the policy, and it's the policy that people want, good. That's what we need for a president. Nobody cares who they are. Do your job. That's it.
They don't want a meritocracy, though. That's they want the
man. It's like asking how come all the checkboxes. A woman as the, you know, the best quarterback in the NFL. If she can do that, great. Otherwise, what does it matter?
Yeah, or like one of these $1 billion is like, why isn't a woman leading Amazon? I'm like, well, if she can do a better job than Bezos, then have at it.
The most I heard on that is from Jordan Peterson, where he said, why is anybody up there? That's the worst job ever.
Yeah.
They work 24/7, nonstop. There's no holiday breaks. They're lucky if they get 4 to 5 hours of sleep. It's stress, constant work all the time. If you're up in that position, millions of jobs rely on your decisions. That's the most stress anybody can have. Who wants to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and the other thing is, so I mean, this kind of ties into something else that happened this week. Is so Bezos and his wife divorced. She got half of his fortune, and she pledged to give half of her proceeds from the divorce to charity. And everybody's praising her for that and be like, oh, why doesn't Bezos give away his money? I'm like, he just lost half of his money, and you expect him to...
Well, he just gave, like, at least a quarter to charity already.
Yeah. Like, well, why doesn't he split his half of the divorce? I'm like, because that's his money to begin with. He earned all that himself.
100% was his.
Oh, man. Yeah. living in clown world with like, yep, you just lost half your income. Why aren't you giving the other half to charity? And also,
this is the messed up part, and now this kind of goes beyond memes or whatever. But this has been built into the marriage system and the divorce system in the United States for decades, where the man gets screwed over. And even though women are now empowered and encouraged to go out and start their own career, they are still considered all the time that they are at home and have no income and therefore entitled to half of the husband's income, even if they had a career, even if they made more. It's very rare we actually hear the reverse. Now, I have seen some cases, so it's not all, where the women actually pays, maintenance or child support, but that's extremely rare.
Yeah, you're talking about like 1 time out of 20. It's
so in a day and age where women are supposed to be equal, where they're supposed to be empowered, where they're supposed to be able to build their own careers, and yet they're still titled to half of their husband's money, for fuck's sake, what is that? That is not equality. And especially if a guy's going to lose half of his life savings, his income, everything he owns, and his wife already had her own career, already had her presence, takes half of that, and then go chew the guy out and say, why don't you donate like she did? Because that was his money.
Yeah.
She didn't work for it. He did.
Yeah. And the other thing is...
Then just, that was her money is what she earned, and his money is what he earned. Separate the two. Cut this crap out. Maybe that made sense 100 years ago, but we've got people who are still complaining about slavery, and that was further back than this. That stuff is gone. That age is gone. We don't live like that. Women want to be equal to men in the workplace. I have no problem. If they can fill a management role, if they can fill a leadership role, they can do this job, great. The best person for that company to help that company succeed. That's how every business should always operate.
Yeah.
Plenty of women in the workforce. They can provide for themselves. They don't need to steal half of the man's earnings just because he's the man.
Well, that kind of ties in, like, man, it's like almost like you had my schedule figured out, because that's kind of ties into the next subject we're going to be talking about. Because,
go any further.
Yeah. So this is also something that happened this week. Bussy Phillips? What kind of name is Bussy? Or is it Buzzy? Yeah, anyway. So she's been making the rounds from something stupid she's talking about. Oops. Where did my... There it goes. So here's a little clip of what she was saying on her show.
Something that happens to half of the population once a month shouldn't be a taboo subject, I think. I mean, to be totally honest, and I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but like if men had their periods, it would be like celebrated. You know, it would be like a holiday. They would get the week off of work and probably the week before and then like the 4 days after their period ends so that they could recover. It would just be a different different experience.
Yeah. Wow. So, and the reason this ties back in, because you're talking about like, oh yeah, if a woman could do the same job, and here she is saying, if men had periods, they would take 2.5 weeks out of the month off of work. What?
Yeah, it's not even accurate.
No, it's not even accurate, and it doesn't make any sense. You're like, wait a minute. If it's that terrible, why do you even show up to work? Why would you want to go out of the house and work if you can if you can stay home, not work, and hey, then you don't have to take any kind of leave for your period?
Well,
that sounds
like an exaggeration. I thought it was about a week. Not
yeah, usually it's... But she was saying they would take the week before and then 4 days after. I'm like, what?
Why?
How would anything... Yeah, how would anything get done ever?
Yeah. And I mean, it kind of depends on the industry, but I personally worked with quite a few guys that have gotten a bad industry or a bad injury.
Yeah.
Take themselves up, they're back to work the same day. They don't leave because they got crap to do. I have done that. Like, man, forget the stitches. I don't have time to wait at the hospital. Just put a rag and tape it up. It'll be fine. Get back to work. I don't have time for this. It's the only way stuff gets done. Who takes half a month off every month?
Yeah, it would
That's
be
like saying
every.
you only should be working 6 months out of a 12-month year.
Yeah.
And in fact, there are plenty of women who do that and then complain about the wage gap.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Like, it sounds like if a period is that terrible, then maybe women shouldn't be in the workplace if they need, like. But they're saying, oh, I guess we're strong enough. We only take a week to deal with it, and I'm like, the
thing is, I understand it's uncomfortable, and I understand women feel, cramping and bloating, and it makes it hard to get through their day when they're at that time of month. I get that. But business doesn't get that. Commerce doesn't get that. The economy doesn't get that. The economy is going to roll on. So if you can't handle that spot, then somebody else should be in that spot who can handle it. And unfortunately for women, men don't do that every month. So it's not a, well, what if? It's just, this is. Yeah. That's why men work their entire lives.
Yeah.
Because they have that downtime. They don't birth the children. They don't go through the 9 months of pregnancy. It may sound unfair. Life is life.
Yeah. That's well, and then the offset to that is, oh, it's not fair that we don't get to work the full year. Like, that's what? That seems bad. I'm like, the way I see it is like, if I didn't have to work ever again, I wouldn't. The reason I go to work is because I have to. And that seems like, it's like, oh, they won't let us go to work. It's kind of like Tom Sawyer. And, where Tom Sawyer is painting the fence, and he tricks other people into painting the fence for him. The people tricked into painting the fence are all of the women who used to be outside of the workforce, and like, oh, now we get to enjoy painting this. Wait a minute. Yeah, they got suckered into that, and I'm like, man, that's staying at home with kids, raising that, like, that sounds like the sweet life. So, I mean, I don't understand it.
Well, I would say, from a typical guy's perspective, most guys don't want to stay at home and just sit on their butt. A lot of guys, at least ones with decent work ethic, want to do something. That's why even on retirement, guys have hobbies like working on cars or building, fiddling with power tools, building shelving, or whatever guys do. They need to do something. They just need to be occupied with something.
Need to feel useful.
Correct. So if you're going to be doing something, why not make some money at it and go get a job?
Yeah.
However, I think most men in their current position would rather be doing something else.
Yeah.
Well, I like my job, but I would rather have a different position, run my own company, building my own custom software and stuff. Right now, I can't do that, so I'll just work where I can and where I fit in and where I can make the most money.
Yep, I'd rather spend my time on hobbies, playing guitar, running my own company and all that sort. Yeah, that's what I was trying to do that. I've been trying to do that for forever and hasn't worked out, so now I'm back to working for somebody else. That's just kind of the way it is. So
it's not the privilege of working, it's just...
Yeah. Well, the other side to that is...
How to make a living. I mean, I've been working since the age of 16. You kind of have to.
Yeah, and when the other side to this whole issue that Bussy Phillips is not... I don't even know who this lady is. I'm not sure, but this video has been circulating around.
Busy? Because that's how it's spelled. Busy?
Busy Phillips?
That's how you spell busy. Like a busybody.
Yeah, I guess busy. Right, I don't know. I have no idea who she is or why she has a talk show or anything like that. I'm like, where is she? Yeah. Anyway, so I don't care what her opinion is. Like, who are you and why does anybody listen to you? Oh, you're some, like, third-rate actress? And why does anybody listen to you again? But anyway, what she's ignoring is that most workplace fatalities, guys, like 90-something%. Well, most men work until they die.
What she's also ignoring is that women in the workplace don't take 2.5 weeks off every month. They wouldn't have that job.
Yeah.
So the women who actually want to be out there and do their job and they're good at it, they don't even agree with her sentiment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's saying that men are weak because if they had to deal with a period, they'd be big babies about it and all that sort of thing. I'm like, okay.
Some fingertips chopped off. Meh, that's no worse than having a period once a month. Yeah, you lost an eye at work. Meh, I had to have a period once a month. I don't get it. I mean, I've seen some horrible accidents at work, especially in the construction industry and stuff. That's not anywhere close to having some stomach cramps for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's annoying and it's an inconvenience.
Yeah. So
They are not
she's a
related.
moron, but people are listening to her for some reason, and that was a CBS interview. Like,
It's a bunch of entitled saps that want to feel like they're worth more than they actually produce.
yeah.
That's all it is. They want to feel better about themselves because they haven't actually accomplished jack and they don't know how to get a good job and they're wondering why everyone calls them a whiny baby and why they don't feel like they're working hard. So they look to people like her just to feel better about themselves and say, yeah, that's true. If men had to go through this, then I would be equal. Rather than you look at actual strong women, independent women, the ones who have made it, they work just as hard as everybody else. They don't need a pat on the back. They don't need someone to come up and say, wow, as a woman, now you did that wonderfully. Instead, people just come up and say, hey, great job. Has nothing to do with you being a woman. You just did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Those women don't need this crap. And there's plenty of strong women out there, plenty of independent women who can do all that work. So I don't know why people listen to that garbage.
Yeah.
It's breeding whiny babies.
Yeah, and I don't have anything to add to that, and I'm trying to think of a good transition to the next thing, but you failed to transition to the next kind of topic. Oh well. But this will be the last topic of the evening as far as topics go. But Monday was Memorial Day weekend. And so that's why I kind of merged the two into Memorial Day. But there was something I saw on Twitter that kind of made me angry. And so, let's see, I'm not sure exactly how to introduce this. So, this is a guy I've talked about on the show before, although for some reason I called him the Argonist because I'm dumb, but it's the Agorist. That makes sense. Because this guy is an ANCAP. I mean, I guess technically there's a difference between Agorists and ANCAPs, but not really. It's more of a distinction without a difference. Because agorism is a type of economy structure that fits within the ANCAP community, and it's their way of, okay, we're just going to separate from society, we're going to build these little self-contained communities, and we're going to ignore all of the status stuff, and that's how we're going to get an ANCAP society. I don't think that that's going to be a viable strategy in the long term as far as changing people's minds into getting rid of the state, but I understand, and I was like, yeah, if that works, it works. I don't think it will, but if that works, yeah, that's proof that the system works without the state. Hey, anything that can prove that, I would be in support of. But what I'm noticing with people who have this kind of the agorist mentality is they seem to be very dismissive of law enforcement and military. So, I mean, so before I get into that, so this is something that Sal posted on Twitter. This is about, and I should have brought this up earlier, but I don't know if you can see that. So that was pretty good. So, I mean, he's kind of hit or miss, I should say. So he does posts a lot of memes, and for the most part, they're kind of like that. Perfectly fine. Like I agreed with that. I gave it an upvote and all that sort of thing, or not an upvote on Twitter. It's a like. But yesterday posted this, and this is the kind of stuff that pisses me off about people who are supposedly ANCAP or agorists or whatever. Is when they post this sort of thing. And there's another guy with a similar kind of mentality. Let's see. Try to look at this. So I don't know if that's quite taking up the entire screen there. So I don't know if you can... I'll just read this out loud. So this guy said, only a fucking idiot would defend police that have no accountability and have murdered innocent people without punishment. Go back on the MAGA train where you belong. So this was not on Memorial Day, but this was kind of within the last couple of days. And he also says, cops are the aggressors. Stopping someone walking down the street and demanding identification for violation of identification is a violation of rights. Right violators deserve bullets. So that's the kind of rhetoric that these people who are ANCAPs or are agorists shouldn't really draw a distinction, although they seem to draw the distinction. So to me, I don't see a huge difference between these two ideologies, and they seem to be very compatible, although for some reason they don't like to call themselves ANCAPs. I'm like, no, we're not like the ANCAPs. And I'm like, well, you guys are saying stuff like this, and especially over yesterday being Memorial Day weekend, or being Memorial Day and the whole weekend being Memorial Day weekend, it diminishes what those people did, because Memorial Day is where we think about and we remember the sacrifice of the people who died serving in the military so that we could have the freedom we have right now. But these people look at that and they say, oh, you're just glorifying the Gestapo. I mean, basically these people were criminals murdering in the name of their countries. And I'm like, I understand that war is an evil. And I accept that, and that's why I had to leave my military service. I don't think war accomplishes the mission it's supposed to. But in the situation like World War II, where Hitler was trying to take over the world and would impose what he was doing in Germany upon the rest of the world, would have put people in concentration camps. It wouldn't have stopped at the Jews. It wouldn't have stopped at the blacks. It wouldn't have stopped at the gays. Wouldn't have stopped at all these different groups. He would have just kept going.
We'll add on to that. We got bombed by Japan without provocation. We wanted out of it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things is
silent and said, well, Hawaii got bombed, but we still don't want any war. We're just going to sit here. Do you think Japan would have stopped? Do you think Hitler would have stopped?
Yeah, they wouldn't have stopped. And so this is the thing that I cannot wrap my mind around is the people who are defenders of the non-aggression principle, who are equating, okay, if you're defending yourself from an aggressor, that is, the non-aggression principle allows for that. Now, if you combine your strength into an active militia and you fight back against an aggressor, non-aggression principle supports that. You put on a uniform and you work for the government and you defend yourself against an aggressor, you're a bad guy. That doesn't logically follow. It's one step. It's because as long as the act is an act of defense, then it is justified. Now, there have been plenty of wars in the U.S. that have not been justified. There have been invasion forces. The whole war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, and now it looks like the war in Iran or Syria and all these other places that are trying to start wars with, unjustified. World War II, justified. I would go and say World War I, not justified. And I've heard plenty of evidence that, had we just let that conflict take its due course and settle out like it should have, we wouldn't have had World War II. Hitler would have never come to power. It would have blown over, but instead we got involved. We made it a much bigger deal than it needed to be. And then we, what was the name of the Treaty of Versailles? Is that what led to the division of Germany, where they were in debt and they couldn't have a standing army? Was that Versailles? What was the World War I treaty?
That's not the...
What, was Versailles World War II, or what was it? I think it was the Treaty of Versailles. Because that's what's sticking in my head. That's what keeps ringing up, but that may be wrong. World War I treaty?
Yeah, Treaty of Versailles for World War I.
Yeah. And that's where Germany was split into fourths, and they couldn't have a standing army, and they were basically, hey, you've got all this debt, you owe us for the war, even though we extended it and dragged it out, and we made it all this. Anyway, so had World War I, had we not gotten involved in World War I, we wouldn't have had to come back for World War II. And it's kind of, we made a problem worse, and then it came back to bite us, and then it, led to people in Germany resenting their lives because now they owed all this debt for a war that they caused it, but had it just blown over, it would have been a smaller thing. They wouldn't have owed as much. It could have been a minor. Countries at the time were having small skirmishes all over. It wasn't anything new. I mean, it's kind of like the War of 1812.
We already had an alliance at that point, and so we were called in to make good on that alliance.
Yeah. So it was one of those things. We kind of, put our foot in the anthill or whatever. We kind of locked ourselves into a bad situation.
Or it would almost be better just to not make alliance, but say, hey, we don't want to be enemies. We want free trade.
Yeah.
If you got your own skirmishes, don't count on me. I don't get in fights.
Yeah.
Just
like, if somebody attacks you, we could come into your to push back.
I don't know how that holds true, because if someone was to attack, say, a member of my family, I'm not going to stand back and say, well, that's their beef. I'm going to go defend my family.
So it's one thing is like if somebody's aggressing against you, you come to their defense and make it so like, don't even bother. It's not worth your time and effort. Okay, because that happened a lot in wars too, where people are like, we started this war. Oh, we bit off more than we could chew. Okay, we give up, and then the war ends. But for some reason in World War I, it wasn't the, hey, we are bad guys, we give up. No, it was like, no, we're gonna go in, we're gonna take over all your stuff, and now all your stuff has belonged to us. That's kind of what happened in World War II, and you're like, that was, and it basically left the German people, or what was left of them, completely destitute. And well, when they're destitute and they're working hours and they're not having anything to show for it, they feel like they're slaves. Well, then they turn to the one guy saying, hey, I know how to fix all this crap. Yeah, so it's, bad situation. Anyway, that's kind of a side tangent. But the people who died in these skirmishes were not dying. It's not like they're like, oh, I'm going to go and take over some oil crap. It's like, no, most of these people who have given their lives in these conflicts, whether the conflicts was justified or not, they went out there thinking they were protecting you. Because they had the mentalities, I'm protecting my home country, I'm doing what's right for my neighbors, I'm doing what's best for the people back home. Fighting the war over there so we don't have to fight the war here. I mean, I was in the military, that was kind of the mindset. That's if that was the case, if I actually felt that my life was best served over there, fighting something over there, so people here could be saved, well, then I would still be in the military. The problem is I saw these wars, and I'm like, if I go over there, I'm fighting for oil. I'm not fighting to defend my people. I'm not putting my life on the front line so that they're protected. If anything, this is just a waste of time and money. If anything, this war is being dragged out, and it's wasting their time. They're slaving away, paying taxes, so that way we can drop bombs on a goat herd. That is, it makes absolutely no sense the more I thought about it. And I'm like, I'm not here defending people. I'm not here putting my life at risk for a noble cause. I'm putting it on the line for some D-bag in the office who signed a piece of paper, so hoping to get more money out of it, or hoping to get fame or political power out of it, or who knows what reason or what motivation, but it's not a rational motivation. But there's so many people who are in that who don't see it that way. And they see themselves as, oh, I'm doing what's right by other people. You can't blame those people for the mistakes of the politicians who put them out there. And that's what I'm seeing with a lot of these people who are ANCAPs. And I'm like,
that's because they have a lack of empathy for humanity.
Yeah.
That's
you're like,
boils down to, and that's no different than socialist or Marxist viewpoints. Lose lack of empathy. The whole
Yes.
point on the non-aggression principle is because you have empathy for humanity.
Yeah.
Is to preserve as much human life as possible. So when you have police trying to defend the innocent against criminals, yeah, sometimes there's bad events. Sometimes we get a Trayvon Martin event where
Yeah.
everyone starts questioning, was that justified? We don't know. But overall, police serve a specific duty to protect and preserve life. That is
Yeah.
something that we should commemorate.
And the thing that
In the
that
military.
yeah, and I don't know if you saw it in the comments, but that was what I pointed out to that guy. I was like, you do realize, okay, eliminate the state. We are going to need law enforcement, and we are going to need military. They are not going to be government-controlled law enforcement and government-controlled military, but there are going to be people that serve those functions. And you're going to have the same problems there.
Even if it's you defending your own property, how do you know if it's justified?
Yeah.
If it's just a guy passing out flyers, stepped on your property to knock on your door and you pull a gun because you don't trust anybody, is that justified because he's trespassing? Or do you just have a lack of empathy for humankind?
Yeah.
That's no different than a cop shooting somebody because they misjudge the situation.
Yeah, and that's going to happen. No matter what system you have, whether it's communism, socialism, anarcho-capitalism, or a republic, you're going to have people in a position of power who misuse that power. That you cannot avoid that. As long as you have somebody whose job it is to protect other people, they're going to shoot somebody who didn't deserve it.
And it may not be intentional. Accidents happen. Bad judgment happens. Bad decisions. It's life, and it's a bad part of life. But for the most part, their goal is to protect innocent.
Yeah.
That is something we should commemorate.
Yes.
We should have a Memorial Day to remember all those people whose goal and duty was to protect the innocent.
Yes. And protecting the innocent, and those are the people who gave their lives in that mission. That's one of these things is like, for these people who are, like, oh, I'm staunch ANCAP and I'm staunch agorist and I'm so anti-state, and if you say anything good about somebody who's in one of these positions, you must be a statist, because that's what this guy called me. I'm like, I don't think you understand your own philosophy, man.
You can't practice ANCAP unless you're an ANCAP society. Otherwise, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
Yeah, and so these are the same people.
In a state society, so at least appreciate the people there to protect you in your current society, your current environment.
Yeah, the people who are of this mindset don't get that, and I'm like, that's what I'm I'm like, well, those people who come off and say these things, especially on Memorial Day when they're talking about, like, oh, that's just a holiday that glorifies the state, and I'm like, I don't think you understand what that holiday is at all, because even if there was no state, we would still want some kind of ceremony or some way to remember people who have died protecting their fellow man.
It has nothing to do with the state.
Yeah.
It's just a commemoration of people who gave their life in service of others.
Yes. And in the Bible it said, greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. And that's exactly what Memorial Day is talking about. I was like, yeah, all these people that they gave away their life for their friends, strangers, neighbors, loved ones. I mean, that's
people they don't even know.
That's the ultimate sacrifice. And to look on that with disdain, you are going, that's the attitude you're projecting for this sort of thing, you are going to turn people away from your ideology. So as far as I can say, like, I'm an ANCAP, and I think it's the most fundamentally sound ideology, and I firmly believe it is right in line with the Bible. That's why, I mean, I'm like looking at those two things, I'm like, yes, both of these go hand in hand. Because according to the Bible, the only kingdom or the only government form that can subsist and can sustain itself is one with Jesus as the king. Without that, no other ruler is going to withstand. No other kingdom is going to last. So it makes sense. It's like, okay, if that's what every kingdom is going to become, is nothing, and is going to be overthrown and knocked away by the only kingdom that can last, it makes sense that we shouldn't be advocating for any single kingdom or government structure, which means, okay, we should have no form of government, would be the closest thing to ideal until we can get to a kingdom with Jesus as the head. Or at least, yeah, but if you don't believe in the whole Jesus aspect of that, okay, well, at least you can still rely on the understanding that the ideology is fundamentally sound based on the concepts of the non-aggression principle and non-contradiction. The philosophy holds true, so either way, whether you're religious or whether you're a secularist who comes to those logical conclusions, okay, that's the ideal society unless something comes along to perfect humanity. So, if that's what you actually believe, coming out on Memorial Day or talking about all cops as if all cops are villains, you are turning people away from what you consider to be the truth. And it's much in the same way that when people talk about Christianity, these people who come out there and say things like that, they're like the Westboro Baptists. They're like
claiming that there's this push against black people, and then you go look at the statistics, and that doesn't hold true.
Yeah,
there have been some unfortunate incidents, yes, and we need to try and prevent those incidents if possible. But overwhelmingly, cops are just there to do their job and protect the innocent.
Yeah, and when you go on this vicious anti-cop or this vicious anti-military point of view, you're like, yeah, you're turning people away from your cause. That's not going to buy you any inroads with people who would disagree with you just because they don't know the facts. If your first impression with them is you saying all pigs need a bullet, they are not going to listen to anything else you have to say, even if you're right on the rest of the 99% of the stuff you say. Because of that one thing you said, you lost them. They're not going to... Yeah, it's that's what I'm looking at these, and I tried talking with both of these guys. Well, Saul, no, not really. He's kind of more of just posting things. I don't think he actually, from what I can tell, doesn't interact with people. The other guy I did interact with, we got into a pretty lengthy debate, and I'm like, yeah, you're if you look at the overall statistics when it comes to police brutality and police convictions of brutality, we have very small amount of corruption in our law enforcement, and that's just gonna kind of, I don't think we can do anything about that, as far as that's always going to be there in any system where laws need to be enforced. You're always going to have those who abuse their power, who let the power go to their head, because power corrupts, right? That's that, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So the best we can do is
a misunderstanding of the situation. Yeah. They thought someone had a deadly weapon, and they didn't. That kid who got shot in the park, they thought that was a real gun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They weren't trying to go isolate that kid or, hey, let's go shoot that kid just for no reason because they're racist. They thought it was a gun. It was just a bad situation and bad judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are flawed. We're not omniscient. Nobody on this planet can tell exactly what's going on in every situation all the time. Bad things happen. So when bad things happen, let's correct it. Punish people if they did make a bad decision or knowingly did something incorrect. But from there, move on how do we make things better. But it doesn't mean everybody in that institution is a bad person.
Yeah, and that's the vast majority. Yeah, but that's the problem is with people like this play status games and
isolationists. They'd rather go live out in the mountains by themselves and have nobody around.
Maybe.
You do not understand the idea of community. Even in an ANCAP society, there's still going to be communities. Yeah. You're going to have to trust some other people with protection of your property or to inform you if someone's out to get you or whatever.
And that's what
and they don't trust the people who are actually trying to protect them. They're already off on a wrong foot.
Yeah, and that was one of the points I brought up in that conversation is like, okay, if you think about the system that we currently have in place with our law enforcement, we're going to have a nearly identical system in place in an ANCAP society, where you have the people who enforce the law, and then you have the Office of Internal Investigations, or the Office of Internal Affairs, who investigate the people enforcing the law to make sure that they're in line with the law. And they're both cops, they both serve, but IA is completely separate from the regular police force. And their entire job is to investigate criminal offenses that the rest of law enforcement might be committing. And if you look at the number of cases where cops have gone to jail for abusing their authority, yes, it's it's a couple of thousand per charge. So I mean, the number of people who get charged with a crime is a pretty consistent with the number of people that go to jail when it comes to those sorts of investigations. When internal when did I say IA, right? Yeah.
Internal Affairs.
Yeah, so when Internal Affairs goes in and investigates a cop and they find wrongdoing and it goes to trial, that cop usually goes to jail. It's a pretty good ratio of, charges leading to convictions. So people who are like, oh, cops are just corrupt and all they're out there is doing is, violating people's rights. And I'm like, if that was the case, then we wouldn't see anybody in that law enforcement going to jail, let alone a pretty, what's the word there? There's a high correlation between charges brought about from internal investigations and people going to jail over those charges. Now, there's these high-profile cases where, the hands up, don't shoot nonsense and stuff like that get broadcast over the media, and those guys goes to trial, and the guy is found innocent, and people are like, oh, what an injustice, and I'm like, but if you look at the facts of the case, also it was a trial by jury. A lot of these internal investigations, they don't end with cops making the final decision. It's usually a jury of your peers making that final decision.
Citizens.
You can't get a more fair system than that. So the only way to make such a system more fair is to offer more competition, in that instead of it just being the state-run police and the internal investigations, well, then you have a third option or a fourth option or a fifth option or however many options of different types of law enforcement keeping each other in check as necessary to keep the system stable. And that's all depending on what the situation needs for. Like, if two competing forces keeping each other in check isn't enough, well, then a third one will show up. Because, it's that supply and demand. It's that necessity being the mother of invention. It's like, well, if there's a need in the market, somebody will come in and fill that need. So you'll have as many competing organizations keeping each other in check and bringing these things to trial as is necessary. But as the system is right now, that's almost exactly what we would have under an ANCAP system or under an agorist system like what these guys want. I was like, so I gotta specify, agorist is almost purely economic. It's not social. It's just, it's kind of like bartering, setting up these little mini isolated communities that only interact with other isolated communities. It's one of those things that's kind of, it's kind of like the ANCAP version of a communist society. Because what some of these guys were talking about is going and living in the same house and pooling their resources together in order to basically save money while they're living and while they're working and building up skills and then trading out. So I was like, yeah, that sounds basically like a commune. And it was like, oh, but it's not because we have money. And I'm like, it's pretty much a commune inside an ANCAP structure. So
it sounds like it doesn't support families.
Yeah. So it's mostly just an economic situation and not so much a societal structure or anything like that. So yeah, I forgot why I mentioned that, but I was starting to say something that sounded a little bit like an agorist might be some kind of legal-ish structure, but it's not. Anyway, Just so this is one of the things that so I started seeing these kinds of memes going out, and I'm like, man, you guys are pissing me off, and I'm sure you're pissing other people off who are libertarian or staunch Republican or conservative or Democrat, and they're seeing this crap, and they're like, dude, yeah, screw you guys, big middle finger to you, don't care what you have to say. So, yeah. And I was like, yeah, that you guys are giving a bad reputation to a good ideology by spreading that kind of stuff. It's all right, let me see if I've... So I think that was it for all the topics. And so in order to kind of, like I was saying, is kind of highlight in these streams on a... Well, I guess maybe this is not quite the same kind of down note. Man, I was trying to bring a little happier mood to the situation, and it just dawned on me that this may not be the best clip to end on, because this is all somewhat depressing. So I'm gonna... whatever, I'm just gonna play this.
J'étais au Mali, j'ai jamais pensé Europe comme ça, surtout la France, tu vois, non. Donc j'ai pensé que c'était un grado, qu'on vient, on va trouver des maisons, on va trouver du boulot pour travailler, pour envoyer quelque chose à la famille qui n'ont rien, qui ne mangent pas à leur faim. Je pensais que c'était dur, mais je ne pensais pas que c'était plus dur que ça. C'est une erreur, c'est une erreur. C'est un grand erreur, c'est un grand erreur. Tous les Africains qui viennent, surtout avec la mer là comme ça, tu prends tes vies à risque, tu vois ce que je veux dire, d'aider encore, et voilà. Tu viens en Europe aussi, tu peux faire 7 ans, tu n'as pas le boulot, tu n'as pas le travail, tu n'as pas le papier, tu vois. Et voilà quoi, c'est un grand erreur.
Oh, all right. Maybe I should have let it run a little bit more, but so that was a clip from Lauren Southern's Borderless that was released, I think on Friday, maybe Saturday. So even though that particular clip is a little bit depressing, I mean, well, a lot of bit depressing, because that's kind of highlighting the situation that a lot of these migrants are finding themselves in. And at that point in the documentary, she's talking about, yeah, what happens once they get to their final destination. So they've paid money to these traffickers, they've crossed the sea, they've gotten into the country that's supposed to be their final destination, and they don't have passports anymore, they don't have identification, they can't do anything, and they're living under a bridge in France. So unfortunately, that particular scene is pretty depressing, and I think overall the whole Borderless documentary is pretty depressing. Reason I was kind of thinking it was a highlight was because, like, Lauren Southern has come a long way from making videos where she pretends to be a trans dude and gets her ID changed in Canada as kind of a joke at how stupid their policies are, to creating these really well done. I mean, like the cinematography in there is really amazing. And just the emotional impact of this documentary. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's available for free on YouTube. And the fact that she is able to put this together, I mean, it's a really good documentary. I can't recommend it enough. And it's just kind of one of those things. Is she went from kind of being a troll-ish, kind of being a shock jock type journalist, to releasing these heartfelt, like, before that it was Farmlands, and now it's Borderless, and I don't know what she's going to go on to do from here, but it's like, yeah, that's amazing. And she's highlighting these stories and giving alternate perspectives, so it's not just the they took our jobs sort of thing. It's pointing out, yeah, it's like the documentary ends with her talking about not only is the countries they're going to getting screwed over, the people coming here from other countries are getting screwed over, and the only people that are winning is these conglomerate NGOs that are making money off of people trafficking, and these slave traders. They're making money off of this. Everybody else is suffering. So, highlighting that, and actually this video has gone out, and she's gotten support from people in the UN because of her work on this, and because of the video clips that they've sent out. There's one particular clip where there's somebody who's working for, I forget the name of the organization, where they were talking about they were basically coaching people on how to lie to immigrations and customs in order to get accepted and to have asylum. So these were people who weren't Christian, and they were teaching them like, oh, well, if you just, if you pretend to be Christian and you give them this kind of sob story about this and sort of thing, and they had to teach them how to pray, not, to make this like, oh, well, this is how a Christian would pray, kind of thing. Well, anyway, that the lady who was giving or was talking about this sort of thing, her organization ended up, I don't know if they shut down entirely, but they deleted all their media presence, and it looks like they're going to possibly see some kind of a legal action against them in the state or the country that they were operating. So because they're basically abusing the system, teaching these immigrants how to lie in order to get asylum that they don't deserve. So that's the kind of stuff is like, highlighting those sorts of things and getting things actually done and getting people to wake up and be like, yeah, we screwed up on this whole immigration thing. This mass immigration doesn't work. We can have people come in and fit in our society, but it has to be it has to be they're coming here for a job that isn't filled. They're coming here to meet a need. So it's got to be mutually beneficial, and right now it's not benefiting either. So I think that's... Oh man, I'm actually close to getting about an hour and a half in this thing. So yeah, the interface is a little wonky. I didn't have time to work on that beforehand. I just had a bunch of clips and stuff queued up beforehand. I'll have to come up with a better way of showing images without it being a black screen for most of the screen, but so I'll have to figure that out for next week. But I think I did a slightly more professional-ish stream. And so yeah, Lauren Southern is great, and if anybody watching this, if you can support her, go and watch that, and send her monies and stuff. So, because Lauren Southern was one of the main inspirations on why I started working on Funfair to begin with, because she got kicked off of Patreon and all that sort of thing and lost her funding, and I was like, okay, this is a definite need, and this is someone who needs to be supported financially, and this is kind of a trend. Okay, what could I do in order to, So even though Funfair didn't pan out or whatever, it's nice that she's able to land on her feet and able to make this all crowdsourced. She's not selling the documentary or anything like that. It's available completely for free, and it was all fan funded. So that's pretty amazing. And that's what we want to see more of. Oh, one last thing about that is when she originally uploaded her video, it was immediately taken down. It was up for like 12 hours, and then YouTube deleted it. And then she had to, basically it was kind of all over Twitter talking about why was this taken down, what happened, why was our video not showing up, and it was probably because YouTube was getting too much backlash, so she uploaded her backup version of it, and then that one didn't get taken down, that one's still up, but YouTube still says, oh, it was just some kind of technical difficulty on their end, or at least on Lauren's end, but yeah, right.
Not buying that.
So even though the video is up right now, and it's amazing that she got that out there, she's getting the message out there, she's hopefully changing people's minds, and like I said, people at the UN have watched this, and she's been talking with them based on the interviews that she's gotten. So hopefully this will start to change things in the European Union, and they will start changing some of their policies and closing down some of their borders because they can't accept any more migration. It's unsustainable. So hopefully things start to change for the better in that because of her works and her efforts. And if that does happen, then YouTube will more than likely close her channel completely, and then she'll have to find some other video source to get her information out there. Alright, but that's a worry for another time when that happens. Alright, I think that's everything.
Yep, I've got nothing else right now.
Alright, thanks to anybody who ends up watching this stream, and anybody who did end up joining me. I didn't see anybody talking in the chat, although I do like this OBS interface. So Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next Tuesday.